The music you heard is your invitation to settle in and prepare for worship service.
Good morning. Hey, you in the back there. Chit-chatty Kathy. Need a little more attention up here. My man's trying to get you to come to order. Y'all are being rowdy, which I do love, usually.
Man, okay, say it, pulpiteer. We are getting this show rolling. We are rolling, okay. Please know that whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Welcome to San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whether you are here in the sanctuary or watching from home, whether you're with us for the first time or the thousandth time, we're glad you are here. My name is Keith Hutchinson. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm honored to serve as your lay leader this morning. I first attended a Unitarian Universalist church 30 years ago, joined this congregation 10 years ago, and I'm currently serving on the board as vice president. San Gabriel is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We are a movement working for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. Sustaining each other here in community is one part of that work.
Good morning. See, y'all made me break my rule. I said good morning twice. I'm Eric Hepburn. My pronouns are he, him. I'm honored to serve as your pulpiteer. The kids are back in school. Summer vacations of all kinds are drawing to a close. Despite the continuing 100-degree weather, I'm looking forward to a productive harvest season together. We've planted a few seeds in our time together already, and I'm excited to see what grows. Please join me in reciting the words to light our chalice. We light this flame to remind us love is the center. As we grow and connect, mature and deepen, love remains the center. When the light of truth burns all else away, love remains. Let us greet this day in song. Our opening hymn is All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. It's number 203 in the gray hymnal. We're singing verses 1, 2, and 3. The lyrics will be projected. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able. Hallelujah. Sometimes we're carrying something on our heart that can prevent us from being fully present. Here, in this community, our sharing of these things with each other is healing medicine. Healing medicine that requires a third page to the script, that is sitting gracefully on my chair.
Here, I got it.
Oh, there we go. Keith to the rescue. Thank you, Keith. I know I wrote this stuff, but I don't. Does it feel like our time for sorrows now? All right, let's try. Well, we're going to try and do it anyway. All right. If you're carrying a sorrow on your heart right now, I invite you to share. In this time, while one of us is practicing the vulnerability of deep grief, the rest of us are practicing the gifts of presence and deep listening, the medicine of empathy. And for all the joys that remain unspoken, we join you in thanks and praise. Hush, it's time for the Wonder Box. Bring forth the Wonder Box. Now there's an object in the box. That's a clue. Here's the written clue for this week. What you must do before the fruition. What you must do before the fruition. Ooh, I like that. Bloom is a good guess. Do I have some other guesses? Nothing. Ooh, I like nothing. So, all right. My Wonder Box contains some seed corn that I got from the Orphan Wisdom School, some beautiful native white corn. All right. Those were all excellent guesses and could have been the word today, but weren't. The word for today is wait. Wait, which can look a lot like doing nothing. As you all might be aware, it might also look like sitting in a puddle of anxiety. I would say doing nothing is preferable to sitting in a puddle of anxiety. But sometimes when we're waiting, we have a hard time not letting the nothing melt into a puddle of anxiety. Anyway, let's hear a story about that from one of my favorites, Mo Willems. Waiting is not easy, by Mo Willems.
Waiting is not easy. An Elephant and Piggy book by Mo Willems.
Gerald! I have a surprise for you!
Yay! What is it?
What is it?
The surprise is a surprise.
Oh. Is it big?
Yes?
Is it pretty?
Yes.
Can we share it?
Yes!
I cannot wait.
You will have to.
Wait? What? Why?
The surprise is not here yet.
So I will have to wait for it?
Yes.
Groan. Oh well, if I have to wait, I will wait. I am waiting.
Waiting is not easy.
Piggy, I want to see your surprise now.
I am sorry, Gerald, but we must wait.
Groan.
Oof.
I am done waiting. I do not think your surprise is worth all this waiting. I will not wait any more. Okay, I will wait some more.
It will be worth it.
Groan!
Eek!
Piggy, we have waited too long. It is getting dark. It is getting darker. Soon we will not be able to see each other. Soon we will not be able to see anything. We have wasted the whole day.
Well,
We have waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. And for what?
for that.
This was worth the wait.
I know.
Tomorrow morning, I want to show you the sunrise.
I cannot wait.
Me neither. Keith's rescuing me again.
All right, let's sing another song, shall we? One more song before we sing the children out. This song is number 354 in the gray hymnal, We Laugh, We Cry. We're singing the first and fourth verses. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able. 354.
Thank you for that music. All the children and youth wishing to go to their groups are welcome to exit. Everyone else, will you join me in singing them out. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. I invite you to a place of deeper stillness and reflection with this passage from Father Richard Rohr's book, Falling Upward, A Spirituality for the Two Halves of Life. In our century, we have seen millions give themselves to ideologies of communism, fascism, terrorism, and unfettered capitalism. Yes, Wall Street is also an embodiment of our ideology, often in angry rebellion against an oppressive container or because they were given no soulful container at all. Like never before, we are now seeing the misplaced anger that was at the bottom of many, if not most, of the social movements of our age. Building on such a negative foundation inevitably produces a negative building. None of these isms ever create a civilization of love or even positive energy. They are largely theories in the head and come from the small egoic personality, leaving the soul bereft, starved, and saddened outside. Without elders, much of our history has been formed by juniors, reacting, overreacting, and protecting their own temporary privilege, with no deep time vision like the Iroquois nation, which considered what would be good for the next 7 generations.
Good morning. 3rd time. 3 times I said good morning. My wife, I do that to my wife too. I just don't want you guys to feel like you're too special. She's like, why do you say good morning to me 4 times a morning? There's not enough of wishing you to have a good day. That's just an excuse for me maybe being forgetful, I'm not sure. So over the summer, I did a sermon series that was based off of an invocation or a benediction that a former minister of mine used to use. And it went something like this. May you find questions more profound than answers, vulnerability more powerful than strength, and a peace that passeth all understanding. So we did some live Q&A sermons with me sitting here in this chair talking about those 3 themes. But I'll tell you, I encountered that benediction, which Reverend Laura was rightfully proud of, about a dozen years ago, and there's always been a little piece of it that just didn't quite sit right with me. And so we're going to dig into that a little bit today, and I've got a new version to share with you. We'll figure out if I made progress or regressed. So the thing that never sat right with me about it was this idea of vulnerability more powerful than strength. And what didn't resonate with me about it after spending a lot of time studying the work of Brené Brown was that I think most of us, when we hear strength in that phrase, we're re-legitimizing this false near enemy version of strength. Like, we are usually envisioning a kind of strength. Like the word is too big, right? It draws too big a circle of the Venn diagram. And inside that Venn diagram of what we culturally think of as strength are too many things that are masquerading as strength but aren't true strength, right? Like being physically able. I mean, that is a kind of strength, but I don't think it's one that is evoked by the opposite of vulnerability, right? And so we're going to dig into that a little deeper, but first, before we do that, I'm going to share with you my new version, and then we'll talk through it a bit. May you find questions more profound than answers, play more proficient than mastery, vulnerability more powerful than invincibility, supplication more productive than control, and a peace that passeth all understanding. Now, having been a furniture designer for many years, I do understand that I've made a 3-legged stool, a 5-legged stool, which has some negative unintended consequences for stability, especially if you put wheels on the bottom of it. But I want to start here. So I was, at the beginning of this month, I was up in Canada at the Orphan Wisdom School. And I was working with an author and activist who was just acknowledged by Harvard Divinity School as one of their most impactful graduates over the last 20 years. His name's Stephen Jenkinson. He's wrote a number of books on death and dying and other topics. And one of the questions he was asked in one of the sessions was about First Nations reconciliation in Canada. And he made an interesting point in reference to that specific thing, which I think deserves to be made in a larger way, not just specific to that. And what he said was, we keep trotting out the language of reconciliation as if there was a first time that we were reconciled. Do you see the twist here? And we've done the same thing in South Africa. They were called the Truth and Reconciliation Committees. Was there ever truly a conciliation to begin with? Why is that important? Well, since we're talking about Brené Brown today, another one of her favorite concepts that I like is the FFT. Now, if you've read your work, you know that I'm not going to say the first F, but it's freaking first times. And the idea is that, look, the first time you have to do something new, it is hard. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have any experience to draw on that's directly related. You've just got sort of your general life experience and your approach, and you just kind of got to dive in and figure it out, right? Am I right? Yeah, like we drive somewhere new even for the first time, and it feels like it takes 3 times longer, and the second time you drive there, you're like, yeah, that was nothing. I don't know why. Why was that so weird the first time, right? That's just an FFT. But here's the thing. When we suggest that racial healing in the United States is something we're redoing, we're telling a lie. We've never had racial justice. It's not a redo of something we successfully did in the past that we're trying to recreate, and we can look back at how we did it the first time. It is, we are trying to be reconciled as all God's children for the first time. And that is why it's so hard. Does that make sense to y'all? This isn't a redo, what we're doing right now. This global world where we're interconnected by technology and able to jump on a plane and be anywhere else in the world in a matter of hours. This is not a redo. This is the first time that we're forced to confront our universal siblinghood with every other human being on this planet in a way that is not abstract. The first time. And it is hard. Lordy, is it hard. But I really like the beliefs of my culture. And I really like saying that my culture is right. And can I just make your culture wrong? Well, you can, but you're avoiding the moment that we're in instead of stepping into it. The invitation in this moment is not to ask whether you get to make other people wrong. The curious question is, how did their people, how did your siblings who you didn't grow up with, how did their answers lead to different insights for them than the ones that you were privy to because of the background you came from? This idea that you've got something to learn from each other, that you've got something to teach each other, that your siblinghood is not a construction or a fantasy, it is a fact of your existence. Now, some of us, due to our families of origin, have experienced both harmonious and extremely disharmonious forms of siblinghood. Sometimes both within an hour of each other. So siblinghood is hard. We know that, right? We know that being up in somebody's space and having them up in our space and having them know which buttons of ours really get us going, like creates a dangerous moment. But that is the vulnerability. We can't help it when we're with our family. We don't have to choose to disclose to our family, hey, that's a tender spot right there. They know, because they were there when we got the scar, right? So we don't have to tell them, oh, that's where I'm vulnerable. They know, and if you push them in their tender spot and they push you back in your tender spot, you're vulnerable whether you want to be or not. In case you've ever been curious about the theoretical basis for why it's so much harder to be with your family than your friends. Because with your friends, you get to choose your level of vulnerability. Well, I haven't revealed to them this thing from my past. So they might wander across it accidentally, but they can't poke you there on purpose. Not until you choose. All right. So I want to invite us into the idea that this moment is both as hard as it feels and as novel as it feels. Because we keep using that re-prefix on almost everything. We had Reconstruction after the Civil War. We never finished building a just union in the first place. We never built one to go back to. So it's not Reconstruction, it's just construction. And it's first-time construction, because the thing that we built the first time wasn't just. It didn't meet the standards. It didn't meet our own self-espoused standards for justice. And we know when we look around at the world today, it's still true, right? I don't think that the idea that the U.S. is 5% of the population and 25% of the world's prison population, that's not a just thing. It's not a just thing to imprison that many of your own people. Something's wrong with the system. And something's not wrong with the people trapped in the system. Hate to tell you. I know it's easier to blame them than blame us, but we're all implicated, and I'm not excluding myself. We are implicated. So, this gets us back to our topic from last week, why we picked this What It Takes to Heal congregational read, because we can't architect an FFT of this magnitude until we're ready to show up different. We have to show up to that fresh moment with new eyes and an open heart, willing to be vulnerable in order to imagine a first iteration of what a just world looks like. But I think we can. I've read a lot of folks. I read too much. You guys know I'm starting a graduate program next month. I have 6 books assigned for the semester. I'm already done reading 2 of them because that's just what kind of nerd I am. But that's all right. All right. So the first line in this new benediction is one you're already familiar with, questions more profound than answers. Let's trouble ourselves to define profound for a minute. Showing great insight. The questions you ask
may show much deeper and greater insight than the answers you think you already know. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's worth some contemplation. Let me share with you this quote from Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers which cannot be given to you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then, gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. I'm suggesting to you that whatever you imagine as a just world is the answer. And how do I heal is the question that puts your foot on the path. I've said this before from this pulpit, and you'll hear me say it a bunch. For those of us in the middle and later years of life, the choice is very simple and a bit stark. Either we heal from the traumas we were dealt in this life, or we pass them on to the next generation. So the next time you think, oh, that's too hard, I don't want to deal with that, I know I'm still triggered about it, but can't I just put up a caution tape? Hey, if you're in my family or in my friend circle, just don't go inside the caution tape and we'll be fine. You can. You can. But that thing inside the caution tape ain't sitting still. It's like an iceberg. There's the part of it you can see, and then there's the continuing accumulation of more and more ice. And pretty soon, your orange tape's a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Any of you been friends with some older folks who became more and more rigid and bitter the older they got? No? Yes? Yeah. That's that iceberg. They didn't want to deal with it, and they thought, well, I'll just fence it off. But it don't sit still. It keeps growing and growing until instead of being an iceberg in the ocean, it is the tundra landscape of your hopeless life. And everything's a trigger. Everything sets you off because you did not do your life's work. The work in front of you is to confront and heal your own traumas and to model how to heal those traumas for the next generation. That's your work. That's the work of moving from midlife to wise elderhood. I will be inviting you over and over again to that work. That work is what makes questions more profound than answers. And it's hard. I've admitted from here 6 weeks ago about yelling at my son in the car, and I did it yesterday. Ugh! It's not easy. It is much easier to talk about this stuff than it is to practice it. I don't want you to feel like I'm talking at you or down to you. I am in struggle every day to live what I'm preaching, and I fail. And luckily, I learn more from the failures than from the days that are smooth. The failures aren't a sign that you're getting it wrong. The fact that you noticed the failure is a sign that there's a chance you could get it right. So, anybody else in the room want to beat themselves up when they fail? Anybody? Oh, yeah, that's some good honesty right there. So, what if your failure is not a cause for self-flagellation, but an acknowledgement that your awareness has grown enough that you recognize that the thing you did wasn't okay? Without that recognition, there's no opportunity to heal that thing. There's no opportunity to make a repair with the person whose relationship you just injured. There's no chance. Anybody know any oblivious people who hurt people all the time and just seem, boop? Yeah. See, that was you if you didn't notice. If you didn't notice that you hurt somebody, if you didn't notice that you did wrong, you're the oblivious person. And the chances for them to find a way out of that behavior pattern are teeny tiny compared to you. You did it and then at least had the good sense to kind of be like, oh, yeah, that wasn't right. That wasn't how I want to show up in the world. That wasn't how I want to be in the world. Right? So it's a blessing. It's a blessing to fail if we're able to be aware of it. All right, moving to the second stanza. Play more proficient than mastery. Play more proficient than mastery. I wrote something last night. It seemed clever, so it probably isn't. Proficient means skilled. It means to be very good at something. And the thought that occurred to me is to become an expert at beginner's luck. I want to become an expert at beginner's luck. There are a lot of FFTs out there. And I want to get good at good first guesses. We'll talk about that a little more in a minute. We've talked about, just to double down on this beginner's luck idea, when you're new to something, at first, you just focus because you don't know enough to overthink it. You show up to the game and you're like, I don't expect to win. I don't expect to do that well. What's the main objective? What part of the rule system can I fit in my head real quick, and let's just go try it and have some fun with it, right? And then suddenly you're like, ooh, maybe I could be good at this. What if I move my wrist like this? What if I move my wrist like that? Right? And then we start doing what we see in sports training, which is you get a plateau and then a decrease in performance, and then you hit a new plateau, right? So it's well documented in literature about sports performance that you should expect both plateaus and dips in performance right before you make a big breakthrough in technique or in physical training or in anything, right? So when we're a beginner, though, it's before all that, and it's just straight up, which feels real good. So we've talked about play as the most natural form of learning. One of the reasons for that, I think, is that when we're truly playing, we are in a joyful place. And for the purposes of this example, we'll say that the opposite of joy is that anxiety thing that we talked about. Anybody here do their best learning when they're anxious? Anybody here do their best learning when they're angry? Oh man, those things are all and always distractions. They're always distractions. It's always a moment where you're like, oh, if I wasn't feeling anxious, I could do this problem better. But you're like, but I can't take my hand off the grindstone. I just got to keep. No, take your hand off the grindstone. Go meditate for 2 minutes, come back. It will make a difference. It will matter to how you're able to show up to that thing and how you're able to let the thing that you're doing teach you. Everything we do is a teacher in this life, if we let it be. But we have to show up that way. We have to show up rested and nourished and not triggered 9 ways to Sunday in order to learn what that moment in life is trying to teach us. All right, mastery. Well, maybe the thing that'll get improved about this later is something other than mastery. I don't know. I struggled with what I wanted to point at with this use of the word mastery is the idea that what you know is more important than your curiosity. Mastery as an end to learning is what I'm trying to evoke here with the use of the word mastery, right? Oh, I'm already a pro at that. I don't need to learn anything else. Ain't nobody that pro about nothing. So the version of mastery that I want to evoke when I use it in this phrase is this idea that you now have nothing to learn from anybody else. That you've taken on that kind of level of seriousness about your own accomplishment. The seriousness is just another form of what Brené Brown calls armor. It's just another way to shut yourself off and protect yourself. It's not an authentic acknowledgement of your accomplishments. What we find in true masters, as opposed to the idea of mastery, is that they have the most questions. True masters recognize that there is no end to the path of craft that they are on. You see it in woodworkers or sculptors who are like, well, what are you going to make? Well, I won't know until the piece of material gets here. It's a conversation between me and that beautiful thing that exists only once in the universe. We have to have a conversation about what shape is inside it. And that conversation will be informed by my spirit and my mind and my history and my aspirations. But it will be equally informed by the miracle of stardust that that thing is. That's what you see in people who I would call actual masters. But masters traffic in humility, not mastery. All right. Third stanza. Vulnerability more powerful than invincibility. Now, you'll notice I replaced the word strength with invincibility because I think this gets at what Brené is trying to teach us through her work. Invincibility is the idea that you can get enough armor on that no one can hurt you. And I've seen people who get pretty armored up, pretty good at it. There happens to be a big Venn diagram overlap between those folks and the folks we talked about who hurt people without noticing. Right? But you can do it. But here's the thing. When you're inside all that armor, you are alone. You're alone. You've cut yourself off from human relationship with your siblings, with your family. If no one can hurt you, you're denying that there's a shared humanity there that matters. You're denying that anyone who you love or care about or who loves or cares about you really matters to you. You'd rather stay safe than stay connected. That's what armor does. That's what 30 years of Brené Brown research has revealed pretty comprehensively. So vulnerability is being willing to take the armor off and show up for each other. I'm going to tell you right now, it's something ministers are warned against, I think. Every one of your opinions matters to me. Every one of you could hurt me with a word. You matter to me, deeply. I feel the responsibility of sitting up here in front of you keenly. I don't want to come up here armored up and preach at you somebody else's wisdom. I want to show up in struggle with you so we can all get better together. That's the Bodhisattva vow. So, at one stage in human spiritual evolution, there was this idea of monasticism, right? In order for you to attain your highest level, you had to go hide yourself away, right? And I don't want to denigrate that. We learned some important things from monastic practitioners. I can tell you that one of the important inflection points on my path was getting to see the Dalai Lama in person. The energy he radiated was real and palpable and spiritual. And I was I was a basketball stadium away from him. I was in the nosebleeds at the old O'Connell Center. No, it wasn't. It was the one they just tore down here at UT, the Longhorn one. O'Connell's back where I did my undergrad. Anyway, but monastics paid a price. They cut off part of themselves. They cut off part of the totality of being human in order to get this uneven development. Our task, the task that I see for humanity at this phase in our evolution, is to level up. We got to level up. We've got to take those who have taken the intellectual path at the expense of the emotional and spiritual path and what they've accomplished. And we've got to take those who have taken the emotional path at the experience of the intellectual and spiritual path and incorporate their wisdom. We've got to take the people who became spiritual geniuses at the neglect of the other two. And we've got to figure out a way to do it together so that we're becoming smarter, both intellectually and emotionally, and spiritually more able to connect with each other and connect to the divinity that is the life and love that creates what we are. So that's the challenge. In Buddhism, they call it being a householder. We are holding and building the houses of our village together. All right. Vulnerability is the cornerstone of human connection. The willingness to be vulnerable is how we express trust. The willingness to be with others when they are vulnerable is how we earn trust. Trust is human connection. All right, next bullet. Supplication more productive than control. Supplication. Supplicate suggests a posture of humility. This one ties into number 2 that we talked about. The definition of supplication that I learned did not come from a book or the internet, but from my own spiritual vision quest process. Supplication is the humble surrender to what is. The parts of it that bring you joy, the parts of it that break your heart. All of it. The root of the word is supple, to be bendable. Its opposite is brittle. You know the old saw, the supple branch bends and twists in the wind, but does not break. The vicissitudes of life are that wind, and your suppleness is all that stands between you and your destruction. There is a deeper spiritual meaning for me to the one that led me to this pulpit, a surrender to the call, a surrender to one's own purpose or daimon, or to that larger purpose that we sometimes call God, a God whose voice whispers our own purposes into our ears. Maybe it comes to us in a vision or a dream, maybe through a neighbor. You see, we're all implicated. None of us are truly free or individual. We're interrelated to each other in deep ways that we simply don't notice most of the time. What is control? It's a lauded word in our culture, but for those of us who are on a growing and healing path, well, usually it's an issue. He or she has control issues. Anybody know anybody with control issues? All right. I won't make you raise your hands on that one. It's too obvious. So these things all overlap and interrelate with each other, right? Control issues and armor are deeply related, right? Control is the shield that you carry on your arm of the armor that Brene Brown talks about. Right? It is the thing that you use. If I can keep people in line doing just what I expect, then I don't have to learn anything new about what's happening out there. I can just keep doing my thing. Just leave me alone so I can keep doing my thing. Maybe if I hold still, the iceberg won't grow. Psych! You can hold still all you want, that iceberg ain't gonna stop. It ain't gonna stop growing because you stopped noticing it for a little while. As a matter of fact, your attention is the only thing that melts it. All right. I don't think I need to beat the dead horse of control any further, although I'll rely on you to tell me if I'm wrong about that when we do reflections. Now, this last line, a peace that passeth all understanding, I already preached on that for 40 minutes or so, so I won't beat that one to death, but I will share this story from Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth. Sri Krishnamurti, the great Indian philosopher and spiritual teacher, spoke and traveled almost continually all over the world for more than 50 years, attempting to convey through words, which are content, that which is beyond words, beyond content. At one of his talks in the later part of his life, he surprised his audience by saying, "Do you want to know my secret?" Everyone became very alert. Many people in the audience had been coming to listen to him for 20 or 30 years and still failed to grasp the essence of his teaching. Finally, after all these years, the master would give them the key to understanding. "This is my secret," he said. "I don't mind what happens." He did not elaborate, and so I suspect most of his audience were even more perplexed than before. The implications of this simple statement, however, are profound. I don't mind what happens. I don't think he's saying I don't let it enter my awareness. I don't think he's saying I deny attention to what happens. I think what he's pointing at is I don't form an opinion. I don't form a reaction to what happens. I notice. Here's something that I learned from being a manager of people for many years. I'm not interested in incidents. I'm interested in patterns. I'm not interested in incidents. They happen. I'm interested in patterns. I'm not interested in the first time you show up late to work or late to a meeting. That stuff happens. The third time in 1 month that you show up late to a meeting or late to work, now we have a pattern worth investigating. What's going on for you? That's something worth getting curious about. But notice, I said curious and not judgmental. I think this is what Sri Krishnamurti is getting at. Even when we notice a pattern that needs intervention, it doesn't mean that we suddenly have permission to judge first and ask questions later. If we're coming from a place of love, the first thing that should get activated in us is a curiosity about the other human being. Bill, you've skipped the last 3 meetings, man. What's going on? Help me understand. Like I didn't hear from you. And are you doing okay? Is there something going on in your life that I need to understand so that we can be on the same page again? Open-ended questions, curious questions. Let the other person tell you why the worst idea that you had in your head is or isn't true about what their motives were or what was happening in their life. How many Ted Lasso viewers are there in the audience? All right. If you didn't raise your hand, I do not like to shill products from the pulpit, but I am telling you that a 1-month subscription to Apple TV so that you can go binge Ted Lasso from end to end is worth your time spiritually. So, in the last season of Ted Lasso, a guy who'd really struggled with his own emotional intelligence tells a brilliant story about a former teammate of his. And I won't spoil it too much, but what he says is, look, none of us know what's going on in each other's lives. None of us know what's going on in the other person's life. That's why we give each other grace. We get curious enough to find out, but we're not entitled to know, right? Getting curious and having the other person say, I really don't want to talk about it, I'm not ready to share. It's enough. You've just answered one of your questions. Is it serious enough that they deserve some compassion from me? If they won't talk about it, it probably is. You're not entitled to that information. But getting curious is a deep way of expressing care. Getting curious is a deep way of expressing your care for another human being. Hey, what's going on with you? Do you have a minute to talk about it? So, I think I've preached from this pulpit before a story from Stephen Jenkinson's book where one of his soul teachers, Brother Blue, encourages him to pick somebody in the third row and play to them all night at a show, at a performance, and says, if you could see what that one person has been through in their life, from their earliest days, everything that got them into that seat tonight, you would fall down on your knees and there would never be another stranger. Are you willing to extend that grace to everybody? And I mean everybody. Even the ones about whom you have hardened opinions. Even about the ones who you believe have earned that hardened opinion. Are they not the most damaged among us? Is there any hope for them but love? All right. Well, at least at the end of today, when I say, may you find questions more profound than answers, play more proficient than mastery, vulnerability more powerful than invincibility, supplication more productive than control, and a peace that passeth all understanding, you'll have some idea what I'm trying to be on about. Thank you.
We take an offering each week to sustain this spiritual home and support the work of our fellowship. If you are visiting, we invite you to fill out a visitor card, which you'll find in the seat in front of you, we hope, and you can put that in the plate so we can find out more about you. Our offertory music is I've Got Peace Like a River, a traditional American spiritual arranged by Mark Hayes, performed by Judy Mayo. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Sometimes we're called to add our voice to the chorus. Sometimes we're called to speak aloud, the message resonating in our own hearts. Our words are medicine, so please keep the medicine potent and leave space for all. Aim at 2 strong sentences. If you're feeling called to reflect, respond, or resonate with today's message, please raise your hand for the microphone.
I couldn't help, while listening to this powerful, potent message today, how often I think I do that. And one of the things I do with my grandkids, and it's happened since I've been retired, to have more time to reflect, explore, and I'll say, hey, I just want you to know Grandmommy is, and all of us, we're all learning till the end of our lives. And then I'll go, and you know what? The more I learn, the more I realize how stupid I am. Anyway, so I'm going to work on maybe bringing more positivity to that, because it's a good thing in my heart, but I realize those words may not reflect properly.
Thank you.
I found myself, Eric, wanting to ask you to tell me in simple words what you wanted me to get out of all of this reflection today.
I want you all to be invited to join me in reflection to see the ways in which you continue to close yourself off to the call of the Spirit in your life. That individual work is your piece in the collective work. And if it seems like I'm hitting the same theme over and over again, or carving the same rock over and over again, it's because I am aware of how thick the armor is. I am aware of how hard it is to look in that place that we've refused to look for 15 or 20 or 30 or 50 years. It's hard. And so is that an adequate answer, Lou?
Just going off what you had said, there's a quote that comes from Socrates, or is believed to be from Socrates, and it says that he believed he was the wisest man and that he knew this because he knew nothing. And so that was his motto on that the wisest one is the one that knows nothing.
All right, thank you all for sharing. If you're called to share an announcement with your siblings, now is the time. I think Fran has an announcement. I'm going to call on Fran first, because I know Fran's got an announcement.
And there's some anxiety with it. This is definitely an FFT in my life, and with Walt too. As I mentioned last week, I will be beginning chemo probably the end of this week. There's a lot of anxiety about that, one of which is the idea of losing my hair. And so I was thinking about how I can make that easier, because I figured I'd cry every time I watched it go down the drain. And I thought, well, what could be better than to ask my friends to help me cut my hair? And so that's what I'm asking for each of you today, each of you. I really would like it if you would stay a few minutes afterwards. And we've got scissors and clippers and the whole bit. And anybody that's old enough to handle sharp scissors, and they are sharp, I invite you to take a whack at it. And I expect to go home looking very shiny. And I really would appreciate your help in helping us begin this new journey and because there's nobody better than my friends, and that's you guys. So, thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
Hey everybody, again my name is Mel, and I announced a couple of weeks ago that we were going to be starting a more of an in-depth music group here at the church, and I'm sorry to those of you who have signed up and haven't heard from me, but life has gotten a little crazy lately. We are doing that. I will be sending out initial emails to the people who have already signed up today, but before I go to bed today, you will have an email. If you are still interested and you have not gotten with me, please feel free to catch me after service today, or next week there will be a sign-up sheet at the welcome table. So thank you.
Hi, I was planning to tell you about the Sunday services meeting after the service today, and that we have postponed it to give our love and support to Fran. Take your time, because my ex-husband's family's got a minor emergency and I gotta go get one of my kids. I will try to get back up here with plenty of time to run that meeting. See you guys later.
So I have an announcement. One of the things that came out of our board meeting last Sunday was that the man with the mic, Keith Hutchinson, is now the chair of our communications committee. And he and I are going to be working on some things. So I have repurposed the suggestion box. If you have thoughts that you would like to be in Keith and I and the other members we recruit, that you'd like to be in our heads and hearts as we're thinking about refining mission, vision, and values and covenant for the community, please write those down and stick them in the box. We'll be gathering data from you for a while. So you don't have to do it today, but I would like you to put it in your brain pan to start thinking today about the best covenant you've ever seen. I know many of you have been members of many UU churches. You've probably seen some outstanding phrases that still resonate with you today, all these years later. I'd like to hear what they were. We would like to hear that from you. So just an open invitation to share your thoughts, your history, your experiences about mission, vision, values, and covenant with us through the suggestion box. We'll say through the month of probably August all the way through the end of September. So, but do think about that, and we would love to hear your voice and your input in that process. The other thing, keep an eye on your messenger this week. I am going to be setting up an inaugural meeting for small group ministry, for people to join in small groups. It's a really important process. You will learn a lot and develop deep connections with the people that you're in group with. I encourage it if you can find the time in your life to do it. It's usually a commitment of about 2 hours a month, usually one evening or afternoon a month, plus a little bit of reading and prep time. But more on that later. I just wanted you to keep an eye out for it because it has not been scheduled yet, but the time is coming nigh. All right, any other announcements?
Eric, would you mind saying a word or two about what's going on over at Southwest?
Oh, thank you for the reminder. Thank you, Pam. Yes, if y'all will remember AJ Jaraska, who was here doing a sermon at the beginning of this month on non-binary and non-dualism. She did me the great favor this morning of manning a table for San Gabriel at a fair at Southwestern University for new incoming students. So Reverend Ron Swain, who is the chaplain of Southwestern University, invited the churches from the community to come set up tables, and they've got the 400 student incoming freshman class there for new student orientation, and they're offering them free brunch. And AJ is there representing our congregation and Unitarian Universalism, and we put together links to the podcast and a bunch of other stuff to let those folks know that y'all means all, and they're included in that. So I'm excited I was going to do it as a gratitude, but we'll do it now. I'm grateful to a friend of the congregation, A.J. Juraska, for agreeing to do that work with us. So I'm hoping that we'll start to see some more Southwest students joining us on a regular basis starting next weekend. So, any other announcements? All right. Thank you so much for taking the time and the awareness to connect us to each other and the world beyond. Finally, if you have a gratitude to share, please do so. Gratitude is not an attitude, it's a practice. TJ.
Well, FFT, right? Yeah. Let's see, 2 strong sentences. I like a challenge, I'll say that much. So, the beginning of this year was very difficult for me, and being part of this congregation has assisted in my recovery. So, I just want to thank everybody that my life is now stable in no small part to the lot of you. And I think that's about 2 sentences or so.
Thank you, TJ. Anyone else got a gratitude they'd like to share before we close this morning? Thank you all, and amen. For all this and more, we are deeply grateful.
As we prepare to return to the world, we remind ourselves through our affirmation to carry our work from this place to every corner of our lives. So please join me in the call and response. The doctrine of this church is love.
We are here to love.
The quest of truth is its sacrament.
We are here to learn.
Service is its prayer.
We are here to care for others.
To dwell together in peace.
We are here to live in peace.
To seek knowledge and freedom.
We are here to honor our differences.
To serve humanity and fellowship.
We are all connected in spirit.
To the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine.
We are here to grow.
Thus do we covenant with one another.
This we promise to do together.
Please join me now in reciting the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame to remind us love is the center. As we explore and rest, engage and heal, love remains the center. When all we see is cold ashes, love remains.
And now for the least novel benediction of all time, because I preached on it for 30 minutes. May you find questions more profound than answers, play more proficient than mastery, vulnerability more powerful than invincibility, supplication more productive than control, and a peace that passeth all understanding. Go in peace.